Hello, it's a beautiful morning here in Phoenix, Arizona, and I am talking about my love and life lesson number 11 because it's the day before my birthday, and I want to share the last 3 videos I'm making. The one yesterday about fear, the one today will be about balance, and then tomorrow's will be what I've learned about love in general. So, as far as balance is concerned, you're going to hear a lot of opinions. I've read some really awesome articles about how balance is a fallacy and how balance is something that sometimes you make a little too important, which I think is a little true, and also how important balance is. So here are my thoughts on it. Our bodies are always looking for homeostasis. Whether we realize it or not, our physical body always is. And our emotions kind of are too, as is our brain, because our brains look for patterns. As human beings, that's just how we're wired. So when we're looking for balance, we're actually looking kind of for a pattern, something that we can predict so that we're not jarred or scared, or we can kind of determine an outcome so that we remain safe. So balance, though, is tricky because it's different for every person depending on their situation, which is something that I've learned. Balance to me right now in my life is going to be really different than balance for you wherever you're at. And one of the ways I think that we as humans figure out what our balance is, what our homeostasis is by experiencing extremes. Which is why I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I don't like the word bad and good. Sometimes we overuse words like that and create these judgments which are condemning judgments, not judgments that keep us healthy and safe and help us create boundaries, but they're actually criticisms and condemnation, which is a little more intense of a judgment, which brings me back to balance. There's a balance to even the languages that we use. So you could be in the shadow aspect of something, like I experienced the shadow aspect of who I was at my worst when I was married and I was having an affair, but it saved my life in that moment. And now that I'm in a healthy relationship, betraying the man that's treating me good would be a lot more detrimental than someone doing that to someone who had pretty much punished me for 10 years prior to me ever doing anything or even thinking of doing something like that. So now that's not my balance anymore. That would be like an extreme shadow thing for me to do. So my balance is a little different. So when I would pull back and I would try to get my life straight so I could get my marriage back on track, and I would try going back to my religion or doing whatever I could and get overly to the light side of who I was and try to experience that. It was the other extreme, and that didn't work either. So I think that sometimes we blind ourselves, and the shadow is always too dark for us to see, and when we go too extreme to the other end, it's too bright. Like these righteous zealots, people who are self-righteous, you can be blinded by that as well. Because what you're doing is you're not figuring out exactly who you are and what your balance between those two extremes are. You're focusing way too much on other people, society, being approved or accepted by a loved one, someone you know you've disappointed anyway, whether it's a parent or a significant other, or you just want to be accepted. And we can get caught up in this back and forth, and we don't really know who we are because we're swimming to these extremes. So what I've learned about balance is when you know you're being your authentic self. When you are able to be honest about where you're at and be with people who let you do so and say, okay, I'm starting to feel this extreme pull this direction or this direction, and I need to communicate about it. I need to talk about it, and I need to do something that helps me feel a little more regulated. Whether it's changing a pattern of behavior or I feel stuck and I need to act on ideas I have, or I need to communicate with my partner about why I'm feeling stuck before I end up betraying them on some level. And if you are in a healthy relationship, you will be able to do that. And there are roles that we all play, whether it's child-parent roles, significant others, different things like that. So we have to remember the roles that we're in too. And when you're an adult, you don't need to worry about the parent-child dynamic as much anymore. Their idea of balance for you is always going to be different than your idea of balance for yourself. So the more you can cut ties with society or parents or a significant other or anybody, a friend, anybody that you feel you have to work really hard to gain their approval, you're becoming imbalanced. You're not living your authentic self, and you're likely to be really unhappy. So, in order to feel content with life and to find that balance, the extremes are really fun, and you don't really know what that means for you until you've experienced some extremes. So instead of punishing yourself for the extremes, or putting yourself down, or other people who might be going through those, just recognize that maybe that's where you have to be or they have to be in order to figure out how to come back. Because the pendulum swings back and forth, but every once in a while it's going to come, and it's going to come full center. And that feels really good. But if it's stagnant center, that's not so great either, because life changes and circumstances change. And so then the balance is going to have to swing one way or another in order for you to feel good about where you're at in life. So remain fluid, like I said in my other videos. Go with the flow, figure out what your balance is, and then adjust it according to your circumstances. The people that are in your life that are healthy for you, and give you a healthy reflection as to where you're at, as opposed to a judgmental, critical one that's not constructive, or they have an expectation of you that is unrealistic or is based on their own issues within themselves that they are projecting onto you, which is, let's face it, a majority of the reason why people have expectations on other people anyway. So avoid the shaming, avoid people who shame, and just live your life in a fluid manner and accept where you're at and make a goal as to where you know you're capable of being. And then set that bar a little higher each time you hit it. And just know that it's going to adjust and it's going to go up and down depending on where you're at. And just be all right with that. Be fluid. Be like water, like the Tao talks about, and I've mentioned in my former video at the Grand Canyon. Thank you so much, and let's talk about love tomorrow. Make it a lovely day.